Very happy to see so many of you here today. The buzzword of the day is AI, and particularly generative AI. And we've been hearing a lot of questions from our members, from our friends about what are we doing with AI? How should we be leveraging it? How can we make sure that we don't miss the boat, right? A lot of folks in finance, though, because finance tends to be a conservative industry, we're not early adopters. We have to be very cautious about the types of technologies that we implement within our organizations. A lot of people are not sure where to start. A lot of people want to try out pilots, but they need to go through a lot of red tape to do so. We're going to have some conversations today about that. We all know that AI is going to be a tool that's going to help us with efficiency, is going to help us with how we run our teams, how we innovate. But in many cases, we haven't quite figured out how. So to that end, Financial Narrative is doing a few different things to help our members get on the leading edge of this question. So first off, we are staying on top of AI examples and AI news in Financial Narrative News. If you don't already subscribe to Financial Narrative News, hop over to financialnarrative.org. You will see the page. Do go ahead and get your subscription, because you'll see that we deliver stories to your inbox every week that cover all industry news, including AI. Next up, we're hosting this webinar, and today we are going to feature some people who I've been having conversation with, who I would say are really leading the charge in terms of implementing AI within financial organizations, and who really have expertise in that area. I'll talk about our speakers in just one second. And then last but not least, we are very pleased that in collaboration with Boston University, we are going to host a 6-week course. It's specifically designed for financial marketing and comms. So addressing the compliance questions, addressing the regulatory questions and the privacy concerns, but also talking about how we can make room for innovation while addressing all of those concerns. If you want to learn more about the course, a little slider just appeared at the top of your screen. Feel free to click on that. We are going to cover in that course Gen AI tools and their applications, strategies for integration into your workflows, decision-making frameworks, insights on creating competitive advantage through data feedback loops. The program is going to be delivered virtually. You'll meet Friday morning for about an hour and a half each week, and then there's about an hour and a half of asynchronous work each week. So about an hour and a half synchronous, about an hour and a half asynchronous, with a cohort of other leaders who are in financial marketing and comms. You can learn more by clicking on the banner. And I'm very pleased that our 2 professors for that course, Andrei Hagiu and Ben Lubin from Boston University, are going to be with us today. So let me go ahead and introduce our speakers. First off, we have our host, digital marketing expert, AI explorer, and financial narrative board member. You all know him, Dave Blackburn. Welcome, Dave. We also have Boston University professors Andrei Hagiu and Ben Lubin. They are really exploring the cutting edge of AI, including how it's creating competitive advantages, how businesses are using it. They're interacting with a lot of business leaders right now who are actively using AI. Linda Recupero helped lead the development of Assurant's AI Governance Committee. It's a governance committee that was really designed to support innovation while keeping the organization secure. So really, they created a process that I think a lot of you will want to understand. And last but not least, we have Zeev Wexler from Vickery. He is working with quite a few clients in the finance industry who are building custom AI implementations for their various needs, whether that's process-oriented, whether that's content creation-oriented. He's working with quite a few brands, some of whom are on this call, including Financial Narrative, to help us get on the forefront of AI. So with that, welcome to everyone. Thank you all for being here. And with that, I will hand over to Dave to get us kicked off.
Thanks very much, Ashley. Hello, everybody. Good day, wherever you may be dialing in from. It's great to see some familiar names and some new names in the chat and in the attendees. Thank you all for giving us your time this morning. My quick background on me, as Ashley said, I'm a digital marketer. 20 plus years, brand side, agency side before that. Currently, now I consult with brands primarily in financial services on digital marketing, digital innovation. Obviously, that includes a lot of AI for what we're doing. Why are we here today? Well, you can't not pick up the paper or open your feed and see it, right? It's actually hard to run an event like this where we plan it a month or even a week ahead of time because things move so quickly. We're going to try to keep it current and give you the latest information, but as we all know, this topic is moving incredibly quickly. But it's also obviously at the top of everyone's mind, and we want to make sure it's something that we continue to bring you the best thinking on. So my background is I was at Bank of America, DTCC, ProShares. I've worked in a lot of very regulated fields in the digital space, so dealing with the technology challenges, the security challenges, the compliance challenges. That's the point of view I will be bringing also. And I will also be serving as co-host. So you'll see me pop in and out on the stage. And my co-host is Ben. I'm going to pass it over to you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ben Lubin. I'm a professor here at Boston University's Business School, but I'm a computer science and the AI space by training. My research is in the area of using AI to build efficient markets. And as such, I've been a fintech CTO for a business trying to use AI to improve the reinsurance market. And I guess what I'd say is that there's a very long history of AI, stretching back all the way to the 17th century, using clockwork, automata, and the seminal work of Alan Turing around World War II. But we've seen something really different in recent years. These deep neural nets have yielded capabilities that are a very significant step beyond what was previously possible. The scale of the data that goes into these models, the scale of the models themselves has improved really dramatically. And that's enabled the emergence of capabilities that people have sought for 100 years, but really haven't been able to do previously. And that means true natural language processing and dialogue processing. It means common sense reasoning, and it means some ability to interpolate and to extrapolate beyond the training data. And sometimes this can look like creativity. And one of our challenges is to understand to what degree that creativity is true and what degree it's just a copyright violation. And that's a big piece of the puzzle here. The technology that I just described has created a raft of managerial challenges across many industries, and financial marketing communications are no exception. We need to be able to understand what the models are good at and what they're not good at, and that's a moving target, as Dave just alluded to. As a firm, should AI be used for employee productivity gains, or should we seek to use it to create deeper changes to processes and products to change the mode of customer engagement and experience? If AI is great at giving average answers and bad at creating exceptional answers, when are average answers good enough? When are they not? When can we customize AI to create better answers? When is it worth doing this? When should we buy AI access? When should we, by contrast, invest to create custom solutions? How does a firm realize competitive advantage through its AI investments, or turning that around, how can a firm use its unique capabilities and data and people to make its AI solutions more powerful than its competitors in terms of quality or cost or user engagement, or ultimately the revenue that they generate? So there's really a lot to unpack here, a lot to discuss, and enough to fill a whole course. And I'm very fortunate that I've had the opportunity to develop a course directly on these questions with my esteemed colleague, Andrei Hagiu, and it's my pleasure to introduce him now and turn it over to him. So Andrei, maybe I could invite you to say a few words about yourself, and then maybe offer some comments on how to introduce customization into AI systems should a firm wish to go that direction.
Absolutely. Thank you for the introduction. So my name is Andrei Hagiu. I'm Ben's colleague at Boston University's Questrom School of Business. My research is primarily on platform businesses, and more recently on how AI changes business strategy. I'll dive straight into one of the key topics that Ben and I like to discuss during our course on AI. Let me share slides if that's okay. Ben, I'll rely on you. Can you see my slides?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. All right. So what I want to talk about is, again, using generative AI to enhance internal productivity, but also companies' competitive advantage. So this will be very short and sweet. Ben, please interrupt. Please keep me on track. So I just want to make a few key points here. Number one, I think from my experience, and I think Ben would also agree with this, what we see in terms of AI adoption by forward-thinking companies is that it's not just adopting generative AI as a tool, but those companies are actually quite deliberate in redesigning their internal processes as well as their products in order to use AI to generate sustainable competitive advantage for the long term. The second point is, at a high level, companies can use generative AI both to enhance internal productivity, so make workers more productive, but also to enhance the customer experience. So you can think about, for example, adding AI chat-based user interfaces to products and services, or using AI to provide highly personalized recommendations to customers and so on. Now, in terms of the different ways to implement Gen AI, we like to think of this as being 3 levels. So starting with the lowest level, sorry, let me advance the slide. Right. So by the way, just a quick note, this is based on a Harvard Business Review article, which I've written last year. The reason this is relevant is I've written this article with Scott Cook, who is the founder of Intuit. And obviously, Intuit is you may or may not know, Intuit is one of the companies that's been very proactive in terms of incorporating AI into their product. So that's part of the reason that we decided to write this article. So in terms of the various levels at which AI can be implemented by companies, so the first level and most basic one is simply saying, I'm a company, I just want to make sure that my employees are using AI tools. And this typically means using off-the-shelf AI tools, publicly available AI tools. Those tools include, of course, your favorites, general LLMs, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and so on. But by now, there are many tools that are industry or function specific. So you can use their AI tools specifically designed for marketing or for sales and so on. And you can use these tools, they're quite useful already. Internal communication, you can do meeting summaries, you can generate ideas for new product features and so on. Now, at this level, of course, because all companies can use this, and these are public tools, I don't think they can provide much competitive advantage. They can provide a short-term edge to companies or to people who are very quick and more adept at leveraging these tools. But in the long run, you probably want to go a little bit beyond level 1. So at level 2, and this is where things get a little bit more interesting, rather than just using publicly available tools, now we're saying, well, is it possible to customize the tools and customize these generative AI tools in a way that is very specific to our brand, to our know-how, and to the language that we like to use, both internally, but of course also with our customers. There's lots of examples here. So you can think about, let's say, a financial service company, like, for example, Morgan Stanley has this, they launched, I think this was 6 months ago in June of 2024. They launched a tool called AI at Morgan Stanley Debrief, which does video meeting summaries, and they draft follow-up emails for customers. Now, of course, this tool is highly customized to Morgan Stanley, to their way of doing business. And of course, it probably is trained on their own, on their data, on the way they like to communicate with customers. So it's very, very different from just using a public available tool like ChatGPT. It's consistent with their brand and so on. And I think this is something that as we go along, more and more companies will probably do something similar. This is level 2. Now you can take this one step further, and this is what we like to call the Holy Grail. So customize the tools, but then also thinking a little bit more strategically about not just having a tool that essentially builds upon existing know-how and existing data, but a tool that gets continuously updated based on signals from customers or from the employees who are using the tool. And those signals, the critical point is those signals should allow the tool to get better over time. So this leads to this self-reinforcing circle that I put here, and this is critical to competitive advantage. So the idea is, if the tool is properly set up within your organization, it should get better as more of your employees are using it or as more of your customers are using it. There's lots of examples of this. It's quite a few companies that are already doing this. I like the video game developing example. So if you think about some video games are using AI tools in order to animate non-player characters, so NPCs. And the idea here is, as players are interacting with these NPCs, the NPC, like the AI that animates the NPCs, gets better at adapting to what makes customers engage more with it. So, for example, if the NPC says something and the actual human players interact more with it, that's probably a good sign. We should stick to that. If the NPC does something and the players don't react, then it probably needs to change. Now, coming to, for example, financial service firms, you can think about, for instance, creating a customized tool based on Gen AI, which produces proprietary tool that produces first draft of research reports. So that's a custom tool. Now, the key point to get to level 3 and to create a data feedback loop is what you need to add here is a feedback signal that tells the tool how to improve on producing those first drafts of research reports. So perhaps you provide it provides you the first draft, and then later on, humans edit it, and they feed back into the system the finalized research report. And then the tool can compare the final draft and the first draft that it came up with, and it learns from that so that next time it produces a first draft, it's a lot better than the first time it did, and so on. So obviously you can think about applications in marketing content. And again, the key challenge here, and this is the part that Ben and I talk a lot about in the course, on this specific topic, is how do you set up the tool in a way that maximizes the feedback that you get from users, that could be internal users like employees or customers, without disrupting too much the customer experience. So there has to be an informative feedback, but it has to be done in such a way that still allows for smooth usage of the tool. Let me stop there. I'm sure there's quite a bit that we can get into quite a bit of discussion based on this.
Thanks, Andrei. Maybe I could ask you to just follow up by offering us a little bit of a laundry list on use cases for the kind of AI tools in finance and Marcom.
Sure. So, I mean, going back through these, so if we go through some of these examples that I put here, so you can think about, for instance, marketing content, right? So you can use Gen AI tools, and again, I think you can use off-the-shelf, publicly available Gen AI tools to create marketing content. I like to echo one of the points that you made a few minutes ago, Ben. So the idea that part of the issue of using publicly available tools, and I think we can all relate to this, is that you'll get something that's decent, but it's not going to be great, right? So you'll get some, probably if you go to ChatGPT and say, hey, please help me create a great marketing message, and you provide some information, you'll get something that's a good start, but it's not going to be exceptional, and it may not be fully customized to your needs. So I think that's why it's important to have a customized system. So you can use for marketing content, you can use, for example, these tools to produce first drafts of research reports. You can use them to summarize meetings or to summarize reports. You can use them to produce competitive intelligence. So you can say, here are our main competitors, please provide a quick report on the strengths and weaknesses of our main competitors. Let's see, what else do I have here? So for example, the tool that Morgan Stanley developed, creating summaries of video meetings and follow-up emails to customers. Presumably these are customers, financial service customers of Morgan Stanley. Internal communications, obviously social media posts, creating sales materials, and so on. I'm sure there are many others, right? I think I sprinkled quite a few examples here.
Yeah, it's varied, and there's a dichotomy in some sense between the productivity style tools, how an individual contributor can gain access to the AI tools, either custom ones or general ones, to get their work done better and more efficiently, versus tools that are more in the space of helping the firm as a whole improve its business processes or its more general outcomes. Do you want to talk a little bit about how to slice that apart?
Sure. So yeah, I think that dichotomy is worth doubling down on. I mean, I think ideally, if ideally every company should try to do both. So again, use Gen AI tools to make their employees more productive, but also to make the product better for customers. Now, sometimes the line between the two can be blurry, right? So I think we had this conversation a few days ago. If you think about, for instance, using a Gen AI tool for creating or enhancing marketing campaigns, surely it helps make the marcom people more productive, but to some degree, it also enhances the customer experience, does it not? I mean, I think it's doing both at the same time, and I think generally you'd want the tools to do both. But yes, I think you can sort of go down the list of various activities, for example, marcom activities, and you could probably easily see some of those activities are mostly internal. So if we say we're going to use generative AI to for internal purposes, create internal presentations, internal events, and so on, meeting summaries, then that's basically a use case where the Gen AI tool is enhancing internal productivity. Anything that's customer facing, so for example, AI chatbots, something that produces recommendations, better personalized recommendations for customers, that essentially is using AI to enhance the customer experience.
That's great. Dave, I want to invite you to jump back in here, as I'm sure you have like 16 things on your mind about places that might go beyond this. And I know Linda's in the wings also with comments here. So maybe I'll just turn it over to you for a minute, Dave.
Yeah, thanks, Ben and Andrei. And I see some good questions coming in the chat. We will get to those, maybe not immediately right now, but so the different doors in that a marcomms team can use to get into AI or to let AI into their organization. I think we've hit on some of the key ones here, and you can think about moving up onto maturity 3-step framework as you do that, right? To be clear, I'm pretty sure everybody out there is using it already, whether they're doing it on their company computer or on their phone.
Right.
But we work in regulated industries. We have serious security concerns, and so as we move forward with it, and we'll talk more about this, and Linda has a lot of good things to say about this. So sorry, Linda, I'm not going to steal your thunder. But think about how that's going to come in, and I think if you all are looking for how do I get started on this path, then I think one of the answers is you're already started on it, because a lot of the tools that you already have in your MarTech stack are rolling in or have had AI features that you never knew about, right? If you are doing digital advertising and you've got one of the systems that runs your ABM campaign or analyzes intent data, it's already happening. It's really happening a lot better. And so you're already there. The other side of that coin is it's risky, and you need to make sure that the vendors that are in your network and have access to your data and et cetera are in fact being responsible about how they use your data and how they're using these tools. So I think all of the info security requirements, and we know the committees and panels, and make sure that they're engaged and you're working with them. But I see just a ton of it in the tools that I'm already using just in the MarTech stack alone. Trying to think if there's anything else, or Linda, if you want to hop in and.
Yeah, I mean, I think just picking up on the idea of kind of a healthy tension between innovation and risk, right? We're all working for and within highly regulated businesses, and there's always that kind of natural tension between the two things, where innovation folks who are supporting innovation are very much kind of the yes people, and the folks on the risk side are a bit of the no people. And so it's trying to find a balance, I would say, between those two things, right? The success is trying to find that balance. And I would say there's not necessarily a balance between productivity and innovation as much as there is innovation and risk. But a lot of these tools started out as more focus on productivity. We bring efficiency to the organization. How do we act more productively in our work and extract, more efficiency out of what we're doing, right? Finding ways to move us from being kind of a money saver tool in AI to more of a money maker, right? How are we helping to drive and find new revenue streams across the organization? So I think that's something else to look at. And within the organization, I think it's critical to try to establish a governance committee or a team that is looking at the balance between innovation and risk, right? And how are we coming to decisions as a group based on our common concerns, enforcing practices and values of the organization, things like integrity and transparency and innovation. How are we really getting there from a risk perspective? So I think one of the things that, Andrei, you touched on is the deliberateness to enhance the organization through both processes and products. And I think that's where it's important when you look at something like setting up a governance committee within the organization, that it's focused both on processes and products, right? So it's important to have within that governance committee representation, both from the business, who's trying to drive things forward from an innovation perspective, as well as the functions who are looking at processes and how do we get this done.
It's interesting, thanks. But we're going to pop over to Zeev in just a minute, but one more thing, and I don't want to talk too much about creative, but because I think Zeev is going to hit on that. But another use case or set of use cases for our business, right? When you think of doing writing or copy or et cetera, there's advertising and there's emails, et cetera. But depending on the purview of your role and how your organization is structured, there was an interesting quote from David Solomon from Goldman last week, where he's got his investment banking S1s being written. He didn't say he's doing it, but he said it's possible to write an S1 all with AI in minutes. And the important thing, I thought he hit the nail on the head, and it's how we all should be thinking about it. He said it can write 95% of the S1, and it's great. The other 5% is not great, and so I put my team on that. So interesting sort of embrace of the innovation, recognition of the risk, as Linda said, and again, I know that's not necessarily considered a marketing deliverable, but if your world includes quarterly product updates or fun fact sheets or investor communications, I know we've got people from all across the range of financial services here, so we can't go too specific, but it's there. And I think I tip my hat to Mr. Solomon, that 95 and 5 is a really good way of looking at it. We've heard it expressed a lot of different ways, I think, in the past 2 years, but that was spot on, I think.
Sorry, Dave, to interrupt, but just to piggyback on what you just said, I think that there's a very deep insight from this way of thinking about it, and to kind of put it in a different language, the models are really good at coming up with answers that are the median, the average of the training data they have. So if you're using a public model, that's the average public solution. If you're using private data, that's your firm's average private solution from the data that it now has that you've gathered from your firm. So that's a really good reason why you want to customize, because now you're getting a solution that is in some sense reflective of that improvement, the improvement of the expertise of your firm. But there's a further implication. Even in that case, it's still only the average response of your firm. And as we all know, especially in communications, the average is often not good enough, right? You want that like high percentile quality that's going to actually drive user engagement and response. And so that's where the human comes back in. And that's, we often hear about worry about the model taking over my job, or the model changing and cause, the cost structure driven side of this equation. And I think the framing that I just articulated, based on the one that you just articulated, is a really useful way of thinking about why that's not the issue. This is not about firing people and replacing them with AI. This is about getting people more productive, broadly speaking, because they have access to this API and having their job change from producing boilerplate to taking a reasonable but not awesome thing that the AI has produced and turning it into something awesome that then really drives progress. And I think more firms think about it that way, the quicker and the more effective they're going to be at really pulling out what's valuable in this technology, but even more importantly, in pulling out what's valuable in their people.
Yeah, I talk a lot about the instead of using the phrase human in the loop, human in the lead, right? I mean, humans have to be driving this. It's not that they're completely, replaced. And just as a small example, at Assurant, I actually wrote the CEO's letter for the annual report using Copilot at the time, because we were test piloting it. And I used the earnings script for the end of the year as my, feed and my prompts. But then, what came back was good and fast, but not great. And so I had to get back in and really make it in the voice of the CEO and really enhance it from a creative perspective. So absolutely agree.
Dave, I'll hand it back over to you. There's been a lot of wonderful questions and comments in the chat. I don't know if we want to pull them in at this point or if we want to keep going and circle back on those.
Well, I also want to kick it over to Zeev initially. We've been taking up a lot of the air here. But,
yeah.
Zeev, your thoughts on, as you're working with brands, sort of how are we balancing Gen AI with innovation versus getting the job done? What are your initial thoughts there? We'll have an opportunity to go deeper, but take it away.
I love what Andrei said, the levels. I think we're all at level 1 at some point, whether it's something that the company knows about or not, but we're all on these tools. We're all using them, whether it's appropriate or not. So I think level 1, we're all at. Level 2 and level 3 is where we need to get to. And it's not just generative AI, Dave. It's more, you got to build the right RAG system, the right information, and then you also have to educate the AI of what you're trying to achieve. And everybody that says here that when you use off-the-shelf tools, you get average, you actually get below average, because the amount of data that's out there, even the average is very limited. You said something about 95-5. I look at it more as 90-10 or even sometimes 80-20. And there are ways to create with AI incredible things. We do with AI, you said S1s, that's a definite. I've seen it happen. Even full answers for RFPs that are complex that would take weeks, you can get to that, but you need to have a secure enclave of data. You can't just use anything out there. You need to have a secure enclave of data, and you need to train it. And I think a lot of times we don't give a lot of emphasis on the training. The training is almost as important as the tool. I'll give you a silly analogy. There's a Lamborghini. It's incredible and amazing, but if you don't know how to drive a manual shift, you're not going to move it anywhere. So there is the tool, which is important, but just as important, if not more important, is the data that the tool is working on, the secure enclave. And then if for a financial company, that really, really negates so much risk, because you're working within a secure enclave of information that you've put in there. So I think 2025, like Andrei said, is the year that everybody's going to level 2 and level 3. And my addition for level 3 is I see companies actually putting in these things inside their tech stack, inside their SDKs, not relying totally on a third party, even if it's custom, and by that really raising their valuation and raising how they use AI. The more they bring it into knowledge bases, the more we take small use cases and put them out there, the better it will be. And if we use the off-the-shelf tools, we're not going to get better. It's just going to be, about the same. If we move it in, just like Andrei said, that's where magic happens, Because AI can do everything in a mediocre way right now with LLMs. We want it much better. And for financial use cases, we need it much better.
That's great perspective, Zeev. Thank you. And I'm going to grab it as a nice transition to our next point, which is how to do this in a strong governance framework, right? And we're going to hit on some questions that are in the chat, and it's just good with who we have on the stage. So, Linda, I'm going to ask you to take it away and really go a little bit more into the detail of how you set up a governance organization at Assurant, and what that process looks like. Because I think as I see the questions in the chat, people want to know how to get, if you're going to drive your Lamborghini, how do you get from 0 to 50, right? If you're starting at 0. And what I also see in the chat and what I hear from brands that I work with, and I've experienced this too, the initial response from our compliance, governance, security teams, of course, is going to be, boom, the wall comes down, thou shall not use this stuff, which, by the way, is the right answer. Because if you do it without understanding the risks, I'm going to take the Lamborghini again. We know what's going to happen. Even if you can drive a manual shift, you're going to drive it into a wall pretty quickly. The equivalent for us is information leakage, or a chatbot gives false information to a client, or the user experience is bad. And so we have to do it the right way. But folks, that's what we do, right? We all work in this environment. We have for years, and we know. But the trick is to find the path forward. So, Linda, if I could toss it to you, and if you could share sort of your journey and how you set up that governance process and what that looked like.
Sure. So originally, when Gen AI was exploding, I was asked by our head of operations to brief the management committee on what was going on. So the CEO and all of his reports, just going to them and giving a brief together with our head of IT to say, this is what's happening. This is what, some of the early kind of watch outs are, and so on. And from there, but we also talked obviously about the fact that this was an incredible opportunity, or offered an incredible opportunity for us to innovate, to be competitive, to grow, and build additional revenue. So the management committee went about saying, okay, we've got to set up a governance committee. And I was one of the early leads on pulling that together. And it was critical, I think, at the time, because we're an organization that was very innovation focused, but obviously highly regulated, so risk aware. And so it was really important to bring in not only leaders of the business, or those critical for driving the business within the organization, but also all of the functions. So you had everyone from legal, compliance, HR, IT, and so on, operations, certainly, all of the different functional groups that would have a responsibility in developing AI. And that included, obviously, comms and marketing as well, but then also the business, who were trying to build something and utilize AI in different ways to try to drive additional revenue for the organization. So in the early days, just given it was a bit of the Wild West, as I'm sure everybody remembers, so much of that, of our focus was getting together regularly, talking about what's out there, what are the watch outs, but also what are the opportunities and where are our best opportunities to utilize this. So, some of the early things that we did as a governance committee was to establish our policy for the organization overall, right? To say how AI could be, or Gen AI specifically, could be used, the different tools, because I'm sure most of you have also experienced the same kind of thing that we went through, which was folks were just taking and using tools on their own without having them be sanctioned by the organization. And there's worries about, data getting out into the public domain and so on. So we had to really establish kind of guardrails at first to say, this is what can be used, this is how we can use it as an organization, but then not to disparage anyone or to turn anyone off. We also opened up the opportunity to establish use case development. So we opened it up to the entire organization to say, if you would like to utilize a tool in a certain way or create some sort of AI opportunity for your business or your function, submit it as a use case, and the governance committee would review that and look at what were the best opportunities to take forward in terms of test cases and so on. So as you can imagine, in the beginning, we had just a flurry of opportunities coming in for use. Some of them were very off the wall. Others were, very kind of down the middle road. But I think just opening it up to folks to enable them to say, hey, we could maybe do this. How about, such and such. And as was discussed already, there are a lot of tools out there that could be utilized, but some of the use cases obviously made more opportunity for building bespoke AI products. So we did a lot of that. There was a lot of look at different opportunities and trying really to prioritize what was the most important use case for us to take forward in the short term. And then others have kind of progressed along the way. So just a lot of discussion. And in the front end, we met almost every other week. And then made our meetings more monthly, but there was a lot of conversation that had to go on. But I think part of, too, the beauty of a governance committee that works is having the mandate from senior leadership to say, we are going to use AI, we are going to use it to better our business, to grow revenue and so on, so that there can be that balance of, okay, the compliance and risk folks know they've got a job to do to really look at things, but the business knows we are really going to use this to develop our business further. So good, healthy discussions, I think.
Thanks, Linda. Yeah, I will share a little bit of my perspective on this. This is not the first time that we, as marketers and comms professionals, have looked at bringing something new in. And so I would encourage you all to lean on what you already know in terms of building consensus and getting the right people at the table. However, I will say that this is a technology shift of a scale that we still don't know. Like, have we seen this before? Is this as big as the internet? Is this as big as mobile? Is this as big as the iPhone? That's how I often see it framed in conversations. I still think we don't know. But one thing for sure is it's very big, right? It's in the realm of very big, and it's a Lamborghini. It's not a or something. But
so Dave, there's a way to measure it, and if you look at everything you just said, the rate of adoption of AI, it is so much bigger than everything you just said. Internet, phone. I know it sounds crazy, but if you really look at the Metcalfe law of growing networks, it is obvious that AI is something we have not seen before. It is bigger than anything we've seen before, and it's going to affect more things. So it's been the technology that we have adopted the fastest in human history, and it's not even close. And we're in the diapers, Dave. Like what we're talking about, these off-the-shelf tools. In a couple of years, everybody's going to have custom tools. Everybody. It's not going to be if, it's going to be when. And if the year before was the year of playing with AI and trying to figure it out, now it's the year of really making sure that your company is not going to die because AI is not going to be a part of what you're doing.
So let me dig in on that a little bit, Zeev, because I totally agree with you. I would say the adoption growth has been record breaking and mind blowing. And on other hand, it's also the power of the thing that people are adopting, I think, is of a scale that we don't really know. So, quick plug, I will say that this isn't just another innovation, people, right? It's good that you're here and that you're listening to this conversation, but I think it's also incumbent on you to continue educating yourselves. Plug for the course that we're doing with BU, because I think that's going to be great to have the perspective of Ben of how things happen under the hood, because we need to understand why it works the way it does. You can't just look at it as a black box. You need to understand how it works. The perspective of Andrei of how this is revolutionizing business strategy broadly across the realm of things. But then to bring it back to you, Zeev, right? What's the right way for us to do this, do it safely, but also embrace the innovation and get some benefit out of it, because we can get up and going very quickly right now with all the risks and benefits that entails. So what are your thoughts about that?
Small use cases. We're trying to do too much with AI. We're trying to solve every problem with AI. There are certain problems that we can easily take the data that we need, secure it with the tool that is appropriate, and solve that problem. Now, of course, everything is about how much something is, costing us or worth for us. So there are two different ways. There's one way to save, and there's one way, like I think Linda said, to create revenue. So you can do both of these with AI. You just need to bring the right data. And I see a lot of question coming in. I want you guys to think about this. The more you invest in the AI, the more the AI will give back to you. So the more shortcuts you take with an AI, the more shortcuts an AI will take with you. It's really, it's a symbiosis. So if you want to build something that is better than other people, then you got to feed it with the data, and not just that, you got to train it. Now, there are many tools out there. Some of them are open source, some of them are closed source. There are APIs you can adopt. But what I want people to really understand is, unless you take your data, secure it in an enclave, and really have a trained AI go on that data and test it, you will not get to the levels that Andrei is talking about, because those will never come from off-the-shelf tools. You'll have to put your own wisdom in it. You'll have to educate the AI how you want it to act, and not by some model that some really smart person brought out. Now, use cases. Sales is a great use case, like supportive sales, building pipeline. This is something AI can do very well. Marketing, content, of course. But again, do you want your content to look like everybody else's content that's using the same thing? Or do you want it to be yours? If you want it to be yours, you got to do a few more efforts. And closing a RAG system, a system that basically retrieves only your data and doesn't talk to everything else, is so powerful. And sometimes we need to look at things of internal use and external use. And we need to separate those things, because the data is different. What you want the tool to do is different. So I think in a lot of ways people are trying to do too much. You should take certain use cases, and then this is something that hopefully, I won't confuse anybody, but LLMs are amazing, but there are other things than LLMs. CNNs, for instance, convolutional neural networks, are actually smaller data sets that can learn. And I've heard questions here, how can you learn and grow? So that's a bigger investment. You need to do more. It depends on what you're trying to get out of it. Does that make sense?
Totally does.
Maybe I can jump in for just one sec, Dave. I wanted to quickly reflect on something that you guys both were saying. There's this analogy that I think you're quite properly making between this AI content and earlier big changes broadly and in marketing, specifically around internet and mobile and these various things. One thing to note about that from a compliance point of view is, you don't want to stand up a website. You cannot stand up a website. You want to shut down fubar.com, you can shut down the M site, right? Like you have a lot of control in most of those other technologies about their adoption rate. Compliance can impose its will in a bunch of ways. That's not true here. This is a technology, as we've alluded to, Dave, as you said in your opening comment, if you don't do something here, people are going to pull out their phone and try to get at least some of the advantages. They won't be the full advantages that Zeev just talked about, but at least some of these advantages on their own. So the no is not really no. The no is just, I'm losing my control, but the effect is still going to happen. And I think in Linda's comments, I think you were really talking about that and how a wise firm is when confronting these compliance questions, needs to be doing so with that context in mind. There is no. There has to be a yes. It's the question of which kind of yes it's going to be, and where are we going to focus our efforts, to Zeev's point. And there's an even more subtle answer to this that will happen through time, which is, it's not, do you have a tool internally that's going to do it? Do you have a competitive enough tool internally that's going to do it? This is a moving target. If your tool internally is good now but terrible in 2 years, people will still jump in 2 years to whatever is available externally. So that makes it all the more important to be really focused on quality. And Zeev's point about narrowing to the places where you believe you can produce excellence, and then having your folks pay attention to those components that you have invested in that way to make excellent, so that that's where they're putting their energy, is going to be really important, because they have the outside option whether you choose to have it or not.
It's a great point, Ben. Thanks. And there are a couple of questions that sort of thematically link up that keep coming up in the chat, and I'll just throw a quick response there. Where questions around, how's my data secured in Copilot? How's my data secured in a public versus private version of any of the chats? I think that's too much to go into here, honestly, but I'll go back to what I said before. Understanding how they work will help you answer that question. And my recommendation to any of you who are having this question is, that's the question that's the conversation that you should be having with your compliance and risk teams, right? That you need to understand it, they need to understand it, and you all need to be well informed as you then come to a policy about it. So it's too big a thing for us to solve here, but it's the right question to ask. And so kudos to asking that question. Sorry, just wanted to jump in on that. Any other thoughts from the panel? We've got a couple other questions that we're going to move on to, but any other hanging threads out there before we move on?
Something that we do with a lot of financial companies, you got to try to make the AI make mistakes. Okay, as you build an AI, as you train it, you got to try to see where are the leaks. Like where white hat hackers go and check out security systems. You need to do that, and that is hard work. It takes time. But that is how you make things work. You test it in a way that you understand what's right and wrong. And Ben, you said something, hallucination is a part of AI, and it's part of the intelligence of AI. But you can build a system that will tell you where the data is coming from, the percentage of accuracy, and how much you can share it. That takes time and effort, but you can do that. So there are guardrails you can put. It's just not automatic.
There's no free lunch in this space, right? I like what you said earlier. The more you put in, the more you get out, and one wants to be thoughtful about that. At this moment, given kind of the timeline here, maybe it makes sense for me to just offer a little bit of a summary of where we've been, and then if it's okay with you, Dave, maybe after that we can turn to some QA kinds of questions. So let me kind of try to put a little bit of a bow on this. I think as we've kind of tried to think through the things that we've been talking about, there's a couple different points. The first one is that organizations and employee roles are going to change as AI strategy starts to get implemented. Folks are going to be doing different things in different ways. Yes, there may be fewer of them in certain very particular places, but that's not the overall theme. The 10 to 1, 100 to 1, the theme is an evolution of what people are doing as they embrace the tools. So I think that's one theme. The second theme is that to keep from falling behind, firms need to at least embrace the open tools and have a strategy about how people are working at that level, and part of that has to do with thinking through data leakage and what that might mean and how to mitigate that. I think a third piece here has to do with trying to realize the sort of true competitive advantage that comes from the AI space, and to do that means leveraging your unique sources of data and expertise so that the AI is capturing that competitive advantage and feeding into the system of your firm. Advanced firms will create feedback loops on top of that to make sure that the AI is staying current as their own processes evolve. So I think that kind of is number 3. Number 4 is that a regulated environment requires well-structured governance committee with a diverse representation. I like what Linda said about that, in order to kind of make sure that the right things are happening. And that means both yeses and nos and in the right places. And then I would say number 5 is to get that kind of sign off. The security and privacy pieces have to be front and center, and Linda also talked quite a bit about that, and that's a conversation that would have to go on. So that would kind of be my summary of what we've heard. I'm sure there's lots of things I'm missing, but I heard each of those 5 points made pretty loudly. Maybe I'll turn it back over to you, Dave. Maybe you want to take some questions at this point. I don't know.
I think we're running short on time. We've captured things in the chat. I want to do a speed round, lightning round of all the panelists before we pass it over to Ashley to wrap up. So, for all of you, you're hearing the questions come in. What's the key takeaway for our audience, for people who want to get this going? What's the number one winning thing for getting this change going in your organization? One thing each of you, and I'll just go in order on the screen. So Andrei, then Ben, then Zeev, then Linda.
Sure, I'll keep it short. Start going from using publicly available tools and discuss with everybody in your organization, how do we move from that to levels 2 and levels 3, like creating data feedback loops, customization, and so on.
Great, thanks.
I'll double down on no isn't an answer, because people are going to jump outside if you don't have an answer yourself.
Great. Zeev?
Think about how to secure an knowledge enclave of your company. Think about how to get something. Yes, the tools are important. I agree with Andrei 100%. Everybody needs to go to level 2 or 3. But in order to do that, you need to secure your knowledge enclave.
Great. Thank you. Linda?
I guess mine would be set up a governance committee in the right way, and as a communications professional, make sure you're communicating not only with your employees, because your employees are still scared for their jobs and so on, but also with your clients and how you're using Gen AI in particular, and with your investors and so on, to underscore your innovative capabilities and so on. Set up that governance committee. Make sure that you are developing strategies that are governance related, prioritizing transparency across the organization, ensuring that you're aligning your internal governance with what's happening externally, because that continues to evolve in terms of rules and regs as well.
Fantastic, thank you. And I'll throw in just a few thoughts. Is approach this like a change management exercise, right? We've done this before. If you haven't read the book Leading Change by John Kotter, read it. That's the classic that we got in business school. And that means you need to think about the skills of your team. You need to think about the culture of your organization. You need to put all the right pieces together. You need to build a plan that's reasonable and achievable, et cetera. So take it in small steps, but treat it as a change management exercise. So,
Dave, if I could interject one thing, look at AI as a person. Don't look at it as a technology or a tool or look at it as almost an entity you're bringing in, and that entity starts as an entry-level entity and it grows. So think about growing the AI inside your company. You're never going to load in a perfect thing, but you're going to grow an entity inside your company.
That's great. Thank you. All right, so thank you so much to this incredible panel. Really appreciate all the knowledge that's been shared. Thank you to the audience and your engagement on the chat. And we didn't get to nearly, I don't know how much we got to, but not much, not enough, but there will be follow-ups. And thank you to Ashley as our leader, and I'm going to kick it back to you to take us home.
All right, everybody. I'm going to ask that our speakers send us a couple of links. It sounded like some articles, books, and other resources were definitely mentioned. We'll get those out to everyone who registered for this event. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to our speakers. This is a hard topic because it's, as Dave pointed out at the beginning of the session, it's a moving target, right? Every single day, the developments in AI and what we can do with it and the types of business implications that we're dealing with are changing. I've noticed the folks who are in the room. I see some of the other conveners, folks who lead some of the other organizations in the group. Hi, guys. Good to see you. and I think that there's a reason. It's because we're all trying to have this conversation, and we're all trying to make sure that we're keeping up and staying ahead, and keeping our audiences informed. So financial narrative will continue to stay on the forefront of that. We're very pleased to be working with Boston University. If you want to have some deeper conversations, really engage in this every week for 6 weeks, which I think would, personally, I'm excited because I'm excited to wrap my head around it more deeply. Do take a look at the AI course. You'll see the link again going above our heads here on the screen. This recording will also be available online. Feel free to contact me, and I will send questions over to any of our speakers if you have questions that we can address. Thank you all so much for being here, and we look forward to seeing you next time.